Okay, folks, welcome back to Dynasty Saturday Night 5. We are live once again on Saturday night. How about that? Here on the Going for Two live YouTube channel. If you're watching us here on YouTube, either live now or recorded later, make sure that you thumbs up the video, subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment. That'd be real swell. If you're listening to the audio feed on the Going for Two live podcast feed, please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review there. That would do us a solid. I'm Brian Ford. I'm here with my co-host Josh Walker. Josh, how you doing?
Doing great. Braves won their first game. It's baseball season, gets my mind off of football a little bit, as I said before, but I'm good. I'm happy to finally do a rookie mock and talk about it. I knew we were planning to do it, so it's kind of good to get at it.
Right on.
And roast some of the people in our draft.
So who were the Braves playing?
Braves play the Nationals, so it's pretty easy opening series.
Nationals are bad now?
Yeah, they won the World Series and then decided to rebuild for some reason. So,
yeah, all right. So rookie mock is the episode tonight. Before we get rolling with that, just want to remind folks of our logo contest. You can design the new Dynasty Saturday Night 5 logo by sending a 16:9 ratio JPEG to my DMs in Twitter, and that's at @FFJunkie_. You can see, let's see, I want to see if I can bring it up for, nah, it's a little hard to do here. But anyway, so you might have seen our Damian Pierce one. He's like running with the ball, and it's like 16:9. So, just a player, graphic, whatever you want to do, just 16:9 JPEG and send it to the DMs. And we're going to announce a winner sometime after the NFL draft. We're going to try to set a deadline of May 1st. But, if we're getting good stuff, then, we can extend it. All right.
I will say if you send something in with Gabe Davis or Will Levis, I will make sure you lose.
Oh yeah. Well, for sure. Yeah, no, there's no Devon A. Chains, no Jalen Hyatts, no. We should tweet out a list of players that we will not accept, right?
Oh, we could tag the players too. That's cool.
Oh yeah, I love when people do that. So for those of you who forget, Dynasty Saturday Night 5, we use lists of 5 as a fun way to talk about Dynasty Fantasy Football, and tonight. We're going to do 5 takeaways from a rookie mock that we did with our Discord folks and the Going for Two Discord. So we were going to do 4 rounds, and I had 5 rounds in there to get the position sorted. And I don't know, Sleeper's got a thing, and I got to figure it out. But anyway, so we're addicts, so we went the full 5. But we're going to base a lot of what we do on just the first 4 rounds, because most leagues are 3 and usually 4 rounds for rookie mocks. But before we go and do that, Josh, the rookie streets, anything going on in the rookie streets that pique your interest lately? Anything that you're seeing in the news, or any info, any buzz, anything that's moving your rankings?
The main thing that's caught my mind was I've been waiting so patiently for Izzy's pro day.
Yeah,
and he did exactly what we expected, so I bumped him up ahead of a clump of people that I was just waiting for a reason to separate on. And he did jump ahead of Roshan, who was one of my favorites. But I do like Izzy more. I think he's faster, more dynamic. And I was very impressed with his pro day.
And 2 years younger, so.
Oh, yeah. He's going to be 20 next year, I think.
I think he's 21 in June, something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It's in my spreadsheet. But yeah, no, that definitely was in the news. I know some people were calling it double counting because we already knew he was big and fast. I don't know that we knew he was that fast.
Yeah,
I think there are some people who I think did peg it in the 4.4s, especially the lower end of it. A lot of folks though were worried that he would be like 4.48, 4.53, right? So I think that helped as well. The 41-inch vertical as well helped. So he was my RB9 and at the top of a tier, and now he's RB8. Into that next tier above Kendre Miller, but that tier still is Miller's still in that tier. It didn't push Miller down to that tier.
So
I just kind of extended the tier. What's that?
Early second, mid second.
Well, we'll talk about that, won't we?
Yeah.
You mean NFL draft or rookie drafts?
No, rookie drafts, because I was taking him late second. I bumped him up early second now if I need a running back.
Yeah, he's been early third, late second in mocks, and then I don't know, since the pro day I've done a couple. He hasn't bumped up that much since the pro day, which is in the mocks that
I'll
I've done
take it.
recently. So, we'll see. I think for me too, just a couple things that are kind of quote unquote, in the news, more like just buzz in the streets. But A.T. Perry is getting some helium. People are loving Hendon Hooker because I think the Daniel Jeremiah effect of mocking him at 23. A lot of people are liking him. A lot of love for Chase Brown I'm seeing lately. So we'll see. That's what happens. And also, I think we're going to talk a little bit later on. Tank Dell isn't like everybody's favorite, small receiver like he used to be, right? Like, it's been a long time since the Senior Bowl, and now like not many people are talking about him. So,
Yep.
All right. Before we get going with our takeaways from the mock, let's pay the bills. This episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog is awesome. They are the industry leader with things like best ball leagues, huge tournaments, private leagues, pick'ems. They're not just football; they're every major sport. I know a lot of people are scratching the itch with their big board and other best ball drafts this time of year. We have a promo for you. If you are a new Underdog account and you use the promo code GF2 when you sign up, they will match a deposit of up to $100. So we're putting a QR code there on the screen for y'all who are watching on the YouTubes and stuff. So pick up your phone and use the camera to scan the QR code because we're fancy. And for those of you listening, sorry, you can't see the QR code. So yeah, go to underdog.com or the app. Use the promo code GF2, and they will match $100. You can start playing and start winning. All right, so going to try something a little new. Well, not a little new. We've done this before. Going to do a screen share. So let's see. Let's see if this works out. I don't know how big it is. That's what she said. And I don't know if folks watching can see the names in that sleeper mock draft. But yeah, so that's the mock draft that we're going from. I'm gonna put the link for it in the YouTube chat here. So those folks who are watching, if they want to open it up in a new tab or a new window, I'm going to put the link there. Speaking of the chat, Kyle checking in as usual. Thank you, Kyle. Hi to you as well. And another Kyle Keach, is still on the Tank Dell train. All right. Well, there's going to be a train for everybody.
Yep.
Up to and through the NFL draft. All right. So we're going to do something pretty basic. We're each going to have a couple reaches, a couple steals, a couple why did this guy go ahead of this guy thing, and then a couple like surprise they didn't go in the first 4 rounds. We were going to call it surprise they didn't get drafted, but I told you we extended the mock to 5. So we're just going to say surprise didn't go in the first 4 rounds, and then just sort of a wild card topic of our choice. Josh, why don't you start us out? You can do reaches, steals, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I'll just start out with a few reaches I saw. Two of my 3 are tight ends. One's Michael Mayer at 112 and Kincaid at 204. I like both of those a lot, and I think they're spaced apart how they should be, but I'm taking them late second, early third, especially since Mayer kind of underperformed. I still think he's going to be really good in the NFL, but I just think there's a lot better talent at wide receiver and running back that you can take before that, and hence why I have them probably 5 to 10 slots lower overall than you do because you have them up a little higher than me. Mm-hmm. So I think 112 and 204 is just a bit of a reach, but if you really need a tight end and you want a rookie, I think it's not the worst. Mm-hmm. And then the other one I'm going to touch on is, and I'll speak more on it later, so I'll keep this brief, Will Levis at 109. I've just got him down into the second round now, and that's mainly more just to make sure I don't draft him because I'm just kind of out on him at this point, and he's not in my player pool for the rookies for next season.
Yeah, we've talked about that
Yeah.
on a bunch of shows. We're pretty much
Yep.
out on Levis, especially at cost. So, when it comes to those tight ends, I do have them a little higher than you do overall, sort of more as like the quality of prospect that they are. But when I think about how I'm approaching rookie drafts, I think that especially first round and even second round tight ends in a lot of cases they're a trap. They're sort of a they're not the value that we want. You burn a little too much capital there, and you wait a little long for them to hit, even if they do hit. I'm more comfortable. I mean, if Mayer, Kincaid, Darnell Washington, are in a spot where I think they're a value, I'm going to take them. I like them. I don't know though. I'm more likely going to be taking a tight end if I do in the third or fourth round. So for me, I'm going to call myself out on a reach here with Charbonnet at 107. The first 6 picks in these Superflex drafts, they're essentially kind of at this point locked in, right? It's Bijan, the 3 quarterbacks, JSN and Gibbs in some order. And then it's kind of, usually Addison, sometimes Levis or QJ or that sort of thing. I went with Charbonnet. Charbonnet is actually my RB2. I have him ahead of Gibbs. So there's a couple ways that you can define a reach. You can define a reach just sort of based on like our rankings, how we view a player. You can define a reach based on the market. And for me, this is a reach based on the market. I don't have to use the 107 to take Charbonnet. I can probably get him 109, in some cases even 110. But for me, it was more of like, okay, let's pretend I only have the 107. I want a 3-down running back. Let's plant my flag on this safe floor prospect. I think a slight reach. Jamie took Roshan at 206. I don't think you're going to need to do that in rookie drafts, but I'll talk a little bit later about those running backs in the second round. I see him more as like a late second, early third, especially with the rise of Izzy. And then I think, I'm surprised Trey Palmer even got drafted. He went at 411. A.T. Perry at 309, I think, is still a little rich for my blood. I mean, it's hard to call something in the third or fourth round a reach because it's like at that point you're taking upside swings. But considering some of the stuff that was on the board, I think those were a little reachy. How about any thoughts on that? Any rebuttals or anything?
Yeah, I'm going to push back on the Charbonnet reach a little bit. And the main reason is I went through this last year. I took Chris Olave at 103 in a rookie draft. And the main reason I did that was because out of like the 6 or 7 rookie drafts I did before that, I picked around 106, to 109. I was not able to get him. Some people do have Charbonnet as their RB2. So if I really want Charbonnet, I'm not going to risk trying to wait a little bit longer, trading back and hope he's there. I say just go ahead and get him. That's kind of the philosophy I have. Now, obviously, don't get him up at like 103, 104 when you know quarterbacks are going. But I think if you're sitting where you are and that's who you like and he's your RB2, I say take him. So I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree with that. My philosophy is just if you like the guy, get him, because if you keep waiting around, you might not even get him, and then you got to trade for him.
Yeah, I think, as we can see here in the chat and on the screen here with the comments, Kyle was ahead of me with putting Charbs as RB2. Mm-hmm. I came to it in the last, I don't know, a couple weeks maybe. But yeah, I think after 106, there's kind of like you can make little mini tiers, like 107 to 110 or that sort of thing. But really, like in the for the rest of the first round, it's kind of like it's pick your poison, right? So, but I think based on the market, it's still a little bit of a okay. Where do you want to go next? Steals?
Yeah, I'm just going to kind of go down, I think, until we get to the end. So Steals, I'm going to start out with one of my favorite players in this draft, and I just keep liking him even more. I'm going to go with Hendon Hooker at 212. I have him ahead of Will Levis. I think he's one of the better prospects, quarterback prospects. Not very like too recent, but over the last 5 or 6 years, some of the best I've seen. He had like the most in college, the most pass touchdowns without an interception. He only threw 5 interceptions in his 2 years playing against SEC defenses. And I think if he didn't have an ACL tear, I think he would be up there with Richardson, Bryce Young, up in that conversation. And it does help that the fact that I've seen one mock, I can't remember where it was from, had him going up at like 7 or 8, the Seahawks' first pick, as opposed to getting him later. So I think just that talk is going to help boost him up a little bit. And I think if he gets really good draft capital, that's a really good steal right there.
Yeah, I think for me, that's like a rankings steal,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Market-wise, there's still a lot of uncertainty. Like I've seen, because people are like, is he going to go late first? Is somebody going to trade up into the late first to get him? Is he going to go second round? I forget. I saw a number somewhere, like the number of quarterbacks that like essentially like don't go in the second round. They either are first or after the second. So that's going to be interesting to see. So I think there's a lot of uncertainty baked into where he's at.
Yeah,
I don't know that. But 212 is still I think towards the bottom of where the market is. So I can get on board with that as a steal.
Like I can say this, I have a lot of picks between 106 and 109 this year, and round 2 there. If I don't have 3 or 4 starting quarterbacks already, I'm going to take him there almost every time, just because I think that's pretty good. I'm going to take a shot that he's going to be really good. So my next one, it's going to be me actually picking Josh Downs at 203. I have him ranked 11th overall. I have him as my wide receiver 5, I believe. I think he's one of the safer bets in the draft. I think he's going to be really good. Kind of a Jahan Dotson type player. He's one of the best possession and hands catchers in the class, even though he's undersized. So if that doesn't tell you, I think he'll be able to go get the ball and get plenty of targets. And my last steal is I Am Goose 23 taking Zach Evans at 302. I think that's way too late for Zach Evans to go. I think people are worrying about his weight, but in college he played above his weight. Like I thought he was going to be 205, 210. So I don't think that matters as much for him because he does have low pad level. He can push, he can run through tackles, and he's just a really good running back. So I think that's a really good spot to get him in the early 3rd round with no capital.
Yeah, the Zach Evans hate has really, really taken hold, as we can see there with him dipping all the way to 302. You mentioned Downs. 203 is like towards the bottom of where I'm seeing him go. I think for me, I'm seeing like 110 to 203 ish is kind of like this group of like I'm not too excited about who I'm getting there value wise, and they're also fairly interchangeable for me, right? So I know that like a lot of people are taking Hyatt and Achane and Flowers and Downs and Mayer in that area, and it's like I like Downs a lot. I mean he's I think my wide receiver 3 ahead of QJ now, but at the same time like. I think the gap between, say, Downs and Mims, right, is who's going much later, is smaller than people think. So that might be a case where, in some leagues, I might trade out of that spot and say, like, all right, I got a couple down shares. Let me, trade out of here and try to maybe get a future, 24 pick and then a 3rd or something like that. But
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so for me, let's see, a steal. I'm going to do a 1st round steal, just for the sake of conversation. Addison at 110. Father Dynasty got Addison at 110. I mean, I'm seeing him go 107, 108, sometimes 10. Like he's usually gone by 110. Usually at 110, people are like, shit, I got to take Levis. I got to take QJ. Is it too early to take Hyatt? Because Addison's gone, right? So I think that's a bit of it's only a few spots, but based on like the market and where things are going in the mocks, like, I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm a little lower on Addison overall, but the fact that he went after Quentin Johnson, I think, and Will Levis, I would definitely take him above those. And I actually have Zay Flowers ahead of him. But they're one spot ahead. Yeah, Zay Flowers is my wide receiver 2, but it's very close.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I just wasn't super impressed with Addison, but at 110, yeah, that's definitely a steal. Because if not, once you get him, you could trade him to someone who really likes him, probably too.
Yeah, I mean, I forgot to say at the top that like this is still an exercise in, gauging the market and that sort of thing. Like a lot of this could shuffle after the NFL draft. Like Hyatt, Flowers, Downs, QJ, right? Like depending Addison, even depending on where you see them mocked, could really shuffle the order that we have them in rookie drafts and could change things around. Like say, for example, I don't know, like the Chargers take Hyatt at what are they, like 20 or 21, right? And somehow instead, Downs slips into the early second. He's gonna be more affordable in rookie drafts, right? But like if someone's really high on Flowers like you are, right? All it takes is one NFL team, and then he's going to be more expensive in rookie drafts. And then the question is like, okay, draft capital spoke, but at that point, is it a value, right? And then that's the question. So one reason I get deeper and deeper into rookie research before all this is to sort of have those calculations of like, I'm not going to sit here and say I know better than the NFL, right? But like, do I think he was overdrafted or underdrafted based on what I think of the player, right? Because people will say the NFL will tell us how they feel, and that's true, right? For the most part, right? But that's usually more true when they drop, because the NFL is telling us they don't like them, right? All it takes is one team out of 32 to like a guy a lot. It's not the NFL speaking; it's that one team speaking. Right. So I think we have to pay attention to like when people get overdrafted like that, overdrafted relative to where we have them. It's not that we're being like, oh, we know better than the NFL, but like it's only one team that said that. So, keep that in mind when you're looking at like the gap between where you have a player ranked and where they're drafted. I think Father Dynasty struck again in round 2 with Tank Bigsby at 210. Even if you're not a Tank person, that's below market at this point. You got Mims at 303. I don't know that that's going to be possible after the NFL draft. That's definitely towards the bottom of where the market has him right now. To me, he's discount Josh Downs. So for him to go like a full round after Downs is. I think the gap is much smaller than that. Again, it's hard to call things like reaches and steals after we get like past like the early third, but I think Jamie did a good job getting Tillman at 306, Jayden Reed at 404, and me taking Sam Laporta at 407 also I think stood out to me. There's people who think Jayden Reed will sneak into the bottom of day 2. He's a lot of people's favorite sleeper wide receiver. So a guy to watch. And then I think, I think the gap between a guy like Laporta and a guy that goes much further ahead of him, like a Musgrave, I just don't think that gap is as big as it was reflected in our mock. So I think I did pretty well there at 407. And then one guy, just real quick, just want to throw out there at the 511, Tyler Scott, right? Mock Draft Database has Tyler Scott as like sort of late second round NFL pick at the moment. The NFL seems to like this guy, and the fantasy community kind of doesn't. So something else to keep an eye on. Anything else? Anything stand out to you there with category number 2 steals?
No, you hit them on the head. And I was going to touch on this, but I narrowed it down. I'm kind of surprised that Kuntz went above Laporta there. Seems a little more of a speculation gamble based on the combine as opposed to overall product. But no, you hit him on the head. Tank at 210 is borderline ridiculous, honestly, because I think he's one of the more complete backs. I agree with everything you said. Tillman's pretty safe also.
All right, okay, so our next category number 3 is how did this guy go ahead of this guy? Go for it.
I'm going to start out one touched on briefly. Quentin Johnson ahead of Flowers, Addison, and Downs. And this is purely rankings for me as opposed to market. I'm lower than most on Quentin Johnson. But at the first round, I want somebody that I don't have to worry about being dead on my roster after 4 or 5 years. I saw the comp for Brashad Perriman from someone who's pretty big in the Dynasty Twitter space and had him as the wide receiver 2. And I don't see how you have someone with that career outlook as your wide receiver 2. So I'm just kind of out on him. I'll take all 3 of those other receivers over Quentin Johnson. It's not to diminish the upside, but I don't want to take a risk that early in the draft. Then I'll go Devon A-Chain at 202 over Roshan, Spears, Izzy, and Tank. I would much rather have all of those over him. I pushed him down into the 3rd round for me, based on my rankings, based on size and limited. He's going to be limited in what he does. And my last one is Will Levis over Hendon Hooker, and it's by a whole round and a few picks. So obviously I touched on that earlier, so I'm not going to repeat myself. But I'd much rather have Hendon Hooker at this point, especially in the 2nd round as opposed to 1st round draft capital.
Oh, for sure. And you know how I feel about A-Chain. I mean, 202 is pretty much the pocket where he's going in a lot of these mocks. I've even seen him in the late 1st. You know how I feel about him. I'm pretty much out at cost. Like I think my brilliant tweet the other day was let's see, the gap between Gibbs and A-Chain is much bigger than the gap between A-Chain and Deuce Vaughn. And this is neither a pro Gibbs nor pro Vaughn tweet. And I just out at cost. Now, people can say, oh, well, what if he sneaks into like, the mid-second, early second, there's a hit rate, blah, 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 blah. Again, that's where I have to ask myself, like, only takes one team, right? And what's the fit? What's the fit where he is, right? What role? What's the ceiling? What do I see for touches, right? That's gonna determine a lot. But right now, yeah, I'm out at cost. I have him down at like running back 11 or something like that. Yeah.
Same. Yeah, I just kind of buried him down there at the running back, so I wouldn't draft him.
Yeah. All right. So, how'd this guy go ahead of this guy? If I'm calling Tillman a steal at 306, I have to say, how did Boutte go ahead of him at 305? Like Boutte slipped and, 305, early 3, right? It's not terrible, like relative to where he's going in mocks, right? But the idea that someone would take him when Tillman was on the board, I don't know. I mean, there's knocks against Tillman because of like the slow development and the age and the Tennessee offense and all that. But am I off here for like pointing this out on the sheet as something to talk about?
No, not at all. I don't think so. Kayshon Boutte, he was one of my favorite players coming right out of the college year because I really liked him, but he's just really not done anything at all to make me do anything but even keep him where he's at. So I've bumped him down a lot. I'd much rather have Tillman at this point over Boutte.
Another one, Chase Brown went ahead of Zach Evans. Now there's a little asterisk here. The person who had the 01 kind of disappeared, and so I had to force picks. And I just, at this point in the 3rd, just took like, the highest ADP or whatever. And for whatever reason, Chase Brown was the highest ADP. So, but, fun story. Chase Brown goes ahead of Zach Evans. That's a little weird. I think 206, as I said, was a bit of a reach on Roshan for Jamie. And it's not terrible considering where the market is. But when you have, for me personally, Spears, Izzy, and Tank on the board, and I even still have Tucker ahead of Roshan, by a good couple spots. Like, I don't know that I can justify that. You're a big Roshan guy. Is you gonna give me any pushback on that?
Only on Sean Tucker. The other ones I have ahead. I've really grown a lot on Tyjae Spears. I think he's going to be really good, and I do have Tank's my RB 4 or 5. So I'm pretty high on him and Spears and Izzy. I just moved ahead. So, I mean, I'm not mad. Like, I wouldn't consider it that bad as much as you because I'm a big Roshan guy, but I would definitely take 3 of those 4 over him.
Yeah, I put the Tucker in parentheses because I think the market is very sour on Tucker. I think for me having him down at 6 is kind of like I've already bumped him, and I don't want to that's my bump, right? Like I bumped him
Yeah.
down. Like that's he's still in a giant tier of like the NFL will tell us what they think sort of thing, and I don't know that like at that point I'd have to say okay, he presents more risk or more uncertainty, or he's worse than Zach Evans, who's 7, Izzy, who's 8, and Kendre Miller, who's 9. And I mean, I could make an argument for those guys, but is it huge? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Does Tucker really belong like decidedly at number 9 out of that bunch? I don't know.
Yeah. No, Tucker's one of the more polarizing players. Some people have him as a top 5 RB in the class. Other people have him down below 10 or right around 10 like I do. So I think it'll be interesting where he goes, and that's one I'm keeping an eye on.
I got to mark this and send it to my Dynasty Fever co-host, Jesse Schneeman. He's a big Tucker guy, and I've been busting his chops about the demise and fall of Sean Tucker. And he just kind of joking that he thinks it's like the media just kind of drumming up stuff, and they don't really have the sources that they, et cetera, et cetera. But like here I am saying like, well, I bumped him down enough already. Yeah, 6 is low enough, So it's almost like I'm devil's advocating for Sean Tucker, which I think he might get a kick out of.
No, he probably will, and he'll probably be surprised that there's somebody even lower on Tucker than you are.
I mean, Tucker's like I think his RB2 or 3 right behind Gibbs. So like he loves him. He still has faith in him.
Wow, interesting.
I think again, not a huge one. Once you're in the 3rd round, it's kind of like whatevs. But A.T. Perry at 309 when Musgrave and Eric Gray were still on the board. I like A.T. Perry. He's climbed a little bit on my board. But when you're in the 3rd round, and I'll talk a little bit about this later, I'm leaning on like the tight ends that present value, and I'm leaning on like the 0 RB NFL landscape, and instead of taking who's going to be like the 6th wide receiver on my team, you know what I mean? Am I off on that?
No, not at all. We actually agree more on this episode than I thought we would. Because usually there's some pretty big disagreements between us because we go about things pretty differently. But yeah, you're pretty spot on with that one.
And Bryce Ford Wheaton ahead of Dwayne McBride and Jaden Reed again. I don't think I can do that. It's kind of pick your poison at that point in the draft. But I mean, there's people who think McBride can sneak into day 2 as like a very narrowly focused role for the NFL, because what the NFL does sometimes is like if you have a really good trait that you're really good at, they'll take you and maximize that trait rather than take like a well-rounded prospect sometimes who is not great at any one thing but is more like a jack of all trades. They'll slip even though they're probably a safer bet. They'll take like that one key trait and try to maximize it and develop it. And if you can just fire Dwayne McBride through, and bruise people, you might take him round 3 and let Eric Gray, for example, slip to round 4. So, I think with the talk of McBride and Jaden Reed getting up in there into sneaking into day 2, I don't know that I can take Bryce Ford Wheaton ahead of him.
No, I agree. And I think kind of Jamal Williams this year kind of proves that once teams find something that you're good at, they're going to use you for it, and they're going to, make sure that you do that. So I think that being said, I do like McBride as a late day 2 pick, but I'm pretty high on him. As me and Ryan said last episode, we're both higher on him. But if he goes day 3, I'll definitely bump him down a little bit. I'm not that stuck on it.
Yeah. I mean, he's in a tier for me that I think is like RB 12 to 15, and he's at the bottom of that tier at 15. But again, it's a tier, right? So, like, do I really care that he's one spot behind McIntosh? Like, no, because McIntosh is pretty unathletic, and I could easily see McBride getting drafted ahead of McIntyre. You know what I mean? Like it's so
absolutely.
it's whatevs. In fact, I probably should be as I'm talking here. I'm thinking I probably should be bumping McBride up above McIntosh at this point anyway. So, in fact, I might have him already. Let me see here.
So I have it up here.
Positional tiers. Yeah, I did. I slipped. McBride's up at 14 and McIntosh is up at 15 now. Right. Yeah.
Hey, I like it.
Yeah. All right.
McIntosh didn't help himself out at the combine either. So
no, he didn't. Eric Gray looked back, the do Staley drills or whatever. But once you break go above a 4.6 40, even at that size, like it really hurts your profile as far as like hit rates and things like that go. So yeah.
Yep.
And then also Deuce Vaughn and Evan Hull. I don't know. Like again, it's the 4th round, and we just shit on McIntosh. But like, really, we're taking Deuce Vaughn and Evan Hull over McIntosh. I don't know. It's not egregious at that point, but I don't know.
Yeah. I agree.
I'm kind of out on.
Well, we know Kyle's an Evan Hull guy, so maybe he'll speak up about that. But I agree.
Doesn't he have him at like RB3 or 4 or something like that?
I know it's top 5. Yeah.
Oh, jeez, gosh.
All right. So I'll go on to the next one, and I'm gonna go do guys. I'm surprised he didn't get drafted through 4 rounds, and I know we have a lot of the same, so I'm just gonna do maybe 3 here. I'll start out with somebody that I got in round 5, and someone who kind of like we talked about, I think can be specialized in the NFL, and that's Mohamed Ibrahim.
Okay.
Led the nation in touchdowns, and I think teams are going to see that. He always pushes the pile forward. I think if anything, he's just going to kind of come on as a Jamal Williams type, goal line back, maybe first, second downs, and come out on third downs. Not that high on him, but I would take him there in the 4th round somewhere. Mid 4th. So I was kind of surprised that he didn't go just based on his college career. Next, I'll go Andre Iosivas, the Christian Watson light, maybe extra light, but he's very athletic. He looked good at his pro day and at the combine.
Yeah,
might be kind of raw skills, but so is Christian Watson. So I think a team might see that and maybe take a chance on him. And after 2 or 3 years of developing, he might turn out to be a pretty good receiver. So I think he's worth a shot in the 4th, but if he doesn't, I'm going to go and try and pick him up right away.
If Marvin Mims is discount Josh Downs, Andre Iosivas is clearance rack Christian Watson.
Yeah.
And yes, Kyle confirming Evan Hull, RB4.
Yep.
Hey, you know what?
5.
Listen. I not that I'm saying that Evan Hull is the prospect that Dameon Pierce was last year, right? But I had Dameon Pierce at like 9 or 10, I think, going into the draft, right? And a colleague of mine, Keith Fleming, at Fantasy and Frames, when I was with that crew, had him at RB3, right? And I thought Keith was off his rocker. I thought he was being like just an SEC kind of homer type, but even though he's a Bulldogs fan, but wow, yeah, so I don't know, maybe Kyle's right, and Evan Hull, the combine darling who ran each thing, 700 yards into the end zone every time, even though he could have stopped. I don't know, people think he has like a well-rounded profile, and maybe he finds a role, and yeah, who knows, right?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Last one I'll do is Tucker Kraft. I think starting out when I first did my rookie rankings, I had him at 3 or 4 for tight ends. I had a 9.68 RAS score. Hasn't done anything to hurt his cause. He might be a little more raw than the others, but I think he has pretty good upside. So while people took Kuntz and Laporta, I'm kind of surprised that nobody took a shot on him there in the 4th round. Maybe even late 3rd if you really need a tight end, but definitely 4th round.
Yeah, I think as we're going through this, a thought that I'm having is how much of this is, yes, the 2023 class is good and it's deep and that's why we like it, and and how much of this is it's April 1st optimism. You know what I mean? Because in 3 weeks, like whatever, half the guys on this list are gonna go like rounds 5 to 7, and we're gonna be like, shit. Right. So like, I think this is the time of year still, even though like I'm kind of sick of talking about like this is still kind of the time of year where I'm finding the best case scenario for a lot of these guys, right? Except like the the Hyatts and the A-Chains and things like that, I'm finding the best case scenario for McBride or whatever, right? But I don't know, I don't know that that's going to be true in a few weeks, right? And so what do you think? Like these guys that we're saying like, oh, I'm surprised they didn't go. Does this represent the depth of the class or does it represent the calendar?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the guys I didn't reach might be a little project-y, Kraft, Iosivas.
Yeah.
And I could just see someone like Ibrahim or McBride just getting stuck on the Patriots where they'll just be dead to everybody for Dynasty. So I think it's a little bit of both. I think I got into a discussion on Twitter about how this class sucks, and I said it's got a lot of floor players. And it's like, I don't want floor players. I was like, well, you need those on your fantasy team, or you're gonna be like the Amari Cooper and Mike Evans of fantasy and have weeks where you score 70 points, some weeks where you score 200. I'd rather be, baseline 160, 170, just using that example. So I think it's a lot of floor plays. Might not be too many exciting players, but I think they'll all be good and last a while.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at this draft and say, Tank Bigsby at 210, Izzy at 209, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that these guys are going to be, ever finish as a top 12 RB in fantasy, right? But, they'll be at least your RB3 on your dynasty roster. Mm-hmm. They'll be reliable flexes and bye-week fill-ins. They'll have RB2 weeks, maybe even like a couple seasons where they finish like in the top 24, right? Like, and guess what? That's pretty good for a late second round rookie pick, right? Like, and I think people just get too into like you said, they want like all the flash in the ceiling and all that, and it just, I that's not the way I judge a class. I judge a class by what we're doing now. That it's four rounds deep, and we're naming names that like we can still make a case that. Like, okay, so I'll start then with my category 4. Through 4 rounds, Tank Dell didn't go, right? And as much as I've never been on the Tank Dell hype train that some other folks are, right? There is a hype train. He's an elite separator, right? He's fast, right? He's got good hands, runs routes like really well. Probably one of the best route runners in the class. Like, yes, he's very small. He's like under 5'9" or 5'8" and under like 165, I think. So, and that profile, that BMI doesn't have a hit rate, and he's going to get pushed around. Right. Yes. But that level prospect, right, last year in 2022 was not like still out there as a UDFA after 4-round rookie draft. You know what I mean? Like they were in like the 3rd round of the rookie draft. So, I mean, it's something to keep in mind, right? Jonathan Mingo, right? He's risen up my board. There are definitely flaws to his game. I'm not saying he's great. Like he's not. I mean, he's still like my wide receiver, like I don't know, 13-ish, something like that, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I'm over the moon for him. 12. He's my wide receiver 12. But to have gotten him at the 507, that blew me away that he didn't go in the first 4 rounds. And one name that I'm going to throw out there is Michael Wilson out of Stanford. A little bit on the older side. He's had an injury history, but he's big and athletic, and the Stanford offense isn't exactly a juggernaut. And we heard some positive buzz around him at the Senior Bowl that the scouts liked him. So, I think to not have him go in the first 48 was a little surprising for me. What do you think of those names?
No, I had all those names down to if we're talking about like wide receivers light, Jonathan Mingo kind of reminds me of a George Pickens light. Really good at catching the ball, going and winning one-on-ones, but he's not polished. But he could always learn. So I definitely think he's worth a shot before the 5th round. Tank Dell's size absolutely poo-pooed his RAS score. He had I think like under 1 in size and weight, and yeah, he's in at 165. But I think he's worth a shot with his separation ability. He definitely won't be playing outside, so that is something to keep in mind. But yeah, I agree with every single person on that list.
Yeah. All right. So time for wild card topics. So we did reaches, steals. How'd this guy go ahead of that guy? And then finally, like, how did this guy not go in the first 4 rounds? So we each chose sort of a dealer's choice category of our own choosing for our 5th in our list of 5. Why don't you start us off?
Yeah, since we're just shitting on small guys, and that's what we've been doing, I'm not going to be touching Deuce Vaughn in a draft. If I'm in a 5-round draft, and then he's there in the 5th round, I might take a shot at that point. And the main reason is his size. I mean, I think that goes without saying. He had a 0.05 RAS score for his height, 179. And the biggest 2 pro comps I've seen is Darren Sproles and Tariq Cohen. Tariq Cohen's not in the league because of an injury. Even then, he didn't rush for a lot of yards. He got some receptions. And I saw this article where Deuce Vaughn had talked to Darren Sproles, and Darren Sproles' one advice was learn to field punts. So I think the only way he's going to stay on a team is if he can return punts, and I think he might be kind of relegated to that and coming in kind of as like every once in a while as a 3rd down back. But I don't see him getting a ton of touches just due to the size, and when he does, it's not going to be anywhere near the line of scrimmage, anywhere near like the D-line and stuff, because I just don't know how that size is going to hold up in the NFL. And not even talking about just injuries, but that's a whole nother topic. Some of that size, they very more likely to get hurt than somebody who's 210, even 195.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll talk about Vaughn and then hit Jamie's comment. So, Vaughn for me again, a guy that I'm pretty much out on. Like his ceiling is Darren Sproles. Like, I mean, he'd have to excel in special teams and be special for his size, in order to do that. There are people though who like him in certain contexts, like Matt Waldman, film guy who's his pre-draft rookie scouting portfolio just dropped for download yesterday, the 31st. He likes him. He likes the way that he moves. Thinks he's kind of like really tough for his size. And compared him to McCaffrey, not as like a prospect, but as like the dynamic movements that they make. So I think he's in the right, whatever team, and they get him out in space and throw him passes or whatever. And, there's a shot, right? There's a shot. Otherwise, he's going to be a bench depth piece for you who might have a fun week or two, because he, breaks off a big run or, takes a short pass to the house. And, but I don't know how people can be confident with him when it comes to, fantasy translating into NFL and then translating into fantasy.
And real quick before we touch on Jamie's comment, that comparison to McCaffrey is kind of baffling to me. And I like Matt Waldman. I think he's really good at what he does. But McCaffrey is freaking ripped and huge. He's 205, and I don't remember exactly how much he was out of college, but when he played Notre Dame, like the dude's big, and he moves like that at that size as opposed to being 5'5", 100.
Well, I think what I mean, not that Matt Waldman needs me to defend him, but what he's saying is that they make similar level of elite movement just at different sizes. You know what I mean? Like the way that he moves is like Christian McCaffrey. Not that he's like,
I know he wasn't saying this his player comp or anything.
Yeah. All right, so let's then say hi to Jamie, who is hopping in a little late to the party. Yeah, Jamie, you missed us. Missed me saying that maybe you reached a little bit on Roshan, but you had a steal with Tillman at 306, and also Jamie had fun taking Jake Bobo, just because his name was Bobo in the 5th round. Sproles hit RB2 numbers, getting drafted as a value in the 4th or 5th round. So I mean, yeah, I mean that's like the absolute ceiling for a guy like Deuce Vaughn. And when that's your absolute ceiling, like really, I don't know that I'll spend even a 4th round pick on you. Who knows, right? But that's kind of when you take swings. When you take swings anyway. All right, so my sort of wild card category is pounding RB late may be a little harder this year, right? So what do I mean by that? So a lot of folks, their approach to rookie drafts, as I was alluding to before, is late in the draft, right? Don't take, day 3 wide receivers who are like your 5th, 6th, 7th wide receiver on your roster. Take backup running backs. Injuries, right? We live in a 0 RB world now where even the NFL is playing 0 RB. Or as the guys on Dynasty Rewind say, at some point in the season, all of us fantasy managers are playing 0 RB because of, injuries and buys, right? So that's generally like, okay, you take swings on running backs in the 3rd and 4th round. I don't know how easy that's going to be this year because the difference between the quality of the running back class and the quality of the wide receiver class is pretty evident. And if you look, what you see on the screen there is not very different from what I'm seeing in mocks. There's a lot of green in that 2nd round, and there's a lot of blue in that 3rd round, right? So this is, again, before we get our info from the NFL as far as draft capital and landing spot, but you have a lot of running backs clumped together in that 2nd round, and you have the wide receivers after like the top 5 or 6 going in the 3rd round. And I'm averaging like a mock a day, and this is what we did here as far as that trend holds up, tracks well with what I've seen in a lot of mocks. Right, you're seeing A-Chain, Kendre Miller, sometimes Roshan, Spears, sometimes Izzy, Tank, sometimes Tucker, right? A lot of times Evans, all go in that 2nd round, right? And then in the 3rd round, that's when you're getting your Rashee Rices, right? Your Cedric Tillmans, your Xavier Hutchinsons, Parker Washingtons, right? So if your strategy is like, let's take wide receivers early and pound running back late, I'm not saying don't do that, right? Because there are the Chase Browns and the McBrides there, but there's also like, I don't know, not much left there on the vine after that 2nd round. So you might want to rethink things and prioritize running back in that 2nd round. Because you're gonna miss out on it, right? So it's like yeah, the day 3 wide receivers and whatever aren't fun, but right. But if you're waiting to take running back to the 3rd round, they're just not going to be there, right? And also in the 3rd round in this draft, there's day 2 possible guys like Rice and Tillman. And in this particular case, Mims went in the early 3rd, right? So in the 3rd this year, you're not necessarily getting that guy who's the 5th, 6th, 7th wide receiver on your dynasty roster, and that's not necessarily because the wide receiver class is great and deep. It's because people are taking running back early, right? So maybe flip-flop the way you think about things this year. I don't know, just a thought I'm experimenting with. What do you think?
No, I agree 100%. If Evans just goes in that 2nd round, that's 8 running backs out of 12 picks in that round. So I think you should probably plan, if you want to get a running back or 2, get them in. If you don't get one in the 1st, definitely get one in the 2nd. Like you said, otherwise you're going to be left without much, and you're going to have to be trying to trade or play the waiver wire if you're light on running backs. And we're towards the end of the season and in the playoffs, and so I definitely think plan on getting one in the first 2 rounds, and then shoot for upside wide receivers in the 3rd, tight ends in the 4th. That's kind of, I don't go by that exactly, but that seems like a pretty good strategy. Best player available 1st round, running back 2nd, wide receiver, and then maybe a tight end.
Mm-hmm. Jamie checking in saying if he can't get JSN, he's just going to take all running backs. I mean, there's something to that, right? I think there are definitely definitely some wide receivers worth, taking chances on in the second and third round. But yeah, no, the running back class is deep. Yeah,
I do want to
sure.
ask Jamie a question since he's in the chat. Did you pick Zach Kuntz because of his name also ahead of because we talked about you taking him over Laporta, so I just wonder if the name had anything to do with that, like it did Bobo.
Well, as long as we're talking about last names, like, listen, I'm not trying to be like whatever. Like, I understand that some people maybe like verbal things aren't their thing, and they're live on shows and things like that. But y'all, we've had about 2 months to practice how to say Abanaconda. Right? Like, we've had a couple months, right, to learn that it's not a chain, it's a chain, right? Like, we've had at least a month, to realize that it's Kuntz, right? Like, be better, folks. Be better. Let's see. Did Jamie answer?
He did.
Yeah. Kuntz is over Laporta, but gotta love the Kuntz. Okay. All right. Yeah, I don't know that I have him over Laporta. I've got Laporta and Musgrave in that tier, and then I think Kuntz and Kraft are below that. Yeah, I've got Musgrave and Laporta in one tier, and then Kraft and Kuntz in the other. What you have to remember about Kuntz is, like, I know that his RAS pops off the page, right? And okay, he's 6'5", 255, but yes, Penn State was deep, so it's not like because he transferred to Old Dominion from Penn State, so it's not like he could only go to Old Dominion, right? Like, he was recruited by Penn State. Yeah, he's got to work on things, right? Like, yes, he's super athletic, but you gotta refine your blocking, refine your catching, and that sort of thing if you're gonna be an NFL receiver. Like, pointing at, we were talking about Matt Wallman before. Matt Wallman talks a lot about clapping, receivers who clap, pass catchers who clap, trying to catch the ball with their hands, and Kuntz is a clapper. So, we'll see. Oh. All right. All right. Any other final thoughts on our 5-round, but kind of more like 4-round mock that we did?
I drafted the best team, but besides that, no.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, of course you did, right? So
yeah, I gotta think that
I almost drafted from the 2 slot just so I could take Richardson 102 and just bore you to death with more Richardson propaganda, but I did not. I spared you that. So
I do appreciate that.
Yeah. I do want to thank the folks from the Going for Two Discord who participated both in the draft and in the chat during the draft. A couple of them are Going for Two staff as well. Like Jamie and Rahul and Father Dynasty. I think Drop the Mic still does stuff for us. I'm not positive about Goose and Smitty and a couple of, because like the sleeper names didn't really match up well with the Discord names, but yeah, no, I really appreciate that. Because it's a lot more fun to do a mock and then do a show about it when it's humans and not robots picking for you. All right.
Yeah, that helps us none, in my opinion. I mean, it might a little bit, but it doesn't do as much as.
Yeah. In Superflex, the sleeper bots mess things up, and they treat it like it's still like it's 1 QB, like they go off of that ADP or whatever. I think they fixed that this year, but I also got to figure out in the mock, like the mocks that I do with other folks who set them up, they set it up right so that the ADP, when you have the all, right, the ADP reflects that it's Superflex. And even when I, put the Superflex position into this mock, and it still didn't sort right. So I don't know. I got to figure that out. But that's a whole other conversation. All right, time to land the plane on this one. Please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. If you're listening to the Going for Two live podcast feed audio, If you're watching us here on YouTube, either now or later, please make sure that you give a thumbs up, like on the video. Leave a comment. That'll also help us. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on those notifications so you'll know when new videos and new shows drop. Another reminder about our logo contest. DM me on Twitter at ffjunkie_ with a 16:9 ratio JPEG for us to use as our new show logo. Please make sure also that you check out the Going for Two family of content. The website that has a little Discord link in the bottom right of the website. We have pretty much a podcast live show for you pretty much every night of the week. So make sure you check things out on this YouTube channel. Josh, plugs.
Yeah, you can find all my rankings, a few player profiles I'm getting started on next week on goingfor2.com. I have Dynasty and rookie rankings on there, and I'll be doing more articles as the season approaches. And you can find me talking shit on Twitter at Rotonaut, ROTONAUT. So, yeah.
And a lot of that shit is baseball shit these days too. So
yeah, it is. I really needed a break from rookies. Like, I'm glad we did this, but that's all I've been doing when I'm not working. So
yeah, Josh is a dual sport tweeter. I just do the football. All right, you can find me on Twitter at ffjunkie_ goingfor2.com. I have Dynasty rankings, Superflex rookie rankings, just like Josh. Have some articles there. Did a lot of prospect profiles. If you heard some names and you're interested in them, or you're like, who is that? When you're listening to us tonight, go to the rookie profile series on goingfor2.com. We cranked out a bunch of them. We're almost done with the ones we're going to do. So we have most of the guys we talked about tonight done. Make sure you check those out. Also have another podcast you can find me on, a Dynasty Fever. It's an audio one that drops on episodes drop on Thursdays at Dynasty Fever Pod for that information. Kyle checking in saying great show. Thank you very much. Appreciate you, Kyle. I guess that's it, right?
Yeah.
That's a wrap. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Go Irish.